Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Enrique de Castro, and you are tuning in to the What's in Your Case podcast. Our guest today is a California native who seeks to invoke a heartfelt resonance with her twist on alternative folk rock. Encompassed within a haunting, ethereal soundscape, her soulful lyrics are raw and unfailingly compassionate. My guest today, Kinsly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Don Rico. I'm very excited to speak to you today.
Now, you and I met during one of the Songwriter Circle meetups, right?
Yes. I think that was back at the end of September, and that was my very first ripping the Band-Aid off moment of, I hadn't performed publicly, like in front of anyone outside of my sister or my close friends in about 10 years at that point. I mean, I've been writing songs on and off my entire life, but I hadn't shared music, certainly with strangers, ever at that point. It was a very, very nerve-wracking night, but I think we were at Hadeen's house during that session, and it just already was such an immense, warm, welcoming, supportive little group of people that it was a lot easier to capitalize on the momentum, ripping the Band-Aid off and just getting through the fear, because I was scared, but I was very excited. Yeah, it was a good night.
And do you remember what made you decide to go to that meetup?
Yes, I do. Let's say it just kind of was that thing throughout all of last year where you just hear the whispers inside of a kind of disconnect. Let's say for my day job, I am a web designer and copywriter. I'm very fortunate to be able to do something creative with my time. But I think I was putting a lot of pressure on my work to be as creatively fulfilling as my music had always been. But I didn't feel nervous or scared in my professional day job the way that I did with the music. So it was really easy to just kind of keep brushing that under the rug and really say, this isn't important. And obviously, every time I said that, I'm just reaffirming to myself that this huge part of myself isn't important. And eventually, I just kind of got to this moment last year where it felt like the dam burst of me saying, okay, well, maybe I could just start researching things and see what this area has to offer. And maybe it wouldn't be actually the end of the world or too painful to just dip my toes in and see what it has to offer. And the worst thing that can happen is just doesn't feel like the right thing to keep pursuing. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to know unless I try. After about, I think it was a week or so of just kind of researching the Sacramento Songwriters Circle Instagram, and that's when I knew the meetup was coming up at the end of the month. And so I was very excited / nervous and went to that, met you. I met Allie Grace that night. I met Nine Fingers. And that's where then I think afterwards we went to Barrio to their open mic, and I was definitely way too nervous to perform, but I figured that just going with everyone to kind of put myself in the experience and see what I could expect one day when I actually could work up the courage to go, what that would be like. And then it wouldn't be some big thing on a pedestal in my mind. It would just feel like something I could actually imagine stepping into and getting up there the way everybody else does week after week. And it was just really nice. Nine Fingers had a great conversation with me that night, just really helping me see that the only difference between where I was at that moment in time when it seemed like some big scary pie in the sky kind of feeling like this big scary monster, and something where, it's just a part of my daily routine that I'm getting out there and I perform at an open mic or at a show every week and it's no big deal. Or at least to some extent, no big deal, is just jumping off the cliff and knowing that once you get the first show over with, then you never have to worry about that again. And you said you can take comfort in the fact in knowing that that will always be your worst show. And from there, it can only get better because now you're just building on the experience and you're building that courage and confidence and self-trust every single time you get out there. But it will never be as hard as your first one. So just get it over with. And then I think I went to Lucid the very next night on that Thursday. And then from there, I just kept going.
That first night, Barrio, that was your first open mic, correct?
Yeah, it was the first one I had been to. I didn't perform that night, but I sat there and I supported them. And I watched. I do myself a bit of a disservice in thinking that I am a very hesitant person when I know I'm probably capable of not being so hesitant, but I kind of lean into that maybe more than I should. But I just know what to expect and have a sense for what I'm getting myself into before I actually sign up to get myself into it. So I think one night of just experiencing an open mic through the immersion therapy was very helpful. And then that gave me more confidence the next night to try it at Lucid and just rip the Band-Aid off.
And then earlier this year, I had the pleasure of interviewing Four-Eyed Whale.
Mhm.
He runs the artist showcase every Friday called Local Sounds. You've played a few of the Local Sounds showcases. Could you tell us a bit about your experience doing those?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I had participated in Nine Fingers zine for the Sacramento Sound last year. And Four-Eyed Whale had also contributed a song, and that's where he found my music and me through that project. He reached out saying that he had the Local Sounds showcase and would I be interested in performing. And so that was, I think my first time was like early, mid-December of 2023. At that point, I was only a few months into doing open mics. It felt like this huge step up that even though the more I've done it, I know now there doesn't need to be this like intimidation factor around it. It was very easy to be very intimidated initially by the fact that it felt more like a proper stage and it just feels like a very present and usually actively engaged audience, which is really, really nice. And I think all of us who perform at open mics, we always enjoy the nights where you get a good crowd that just feels like they're in it with you and you get to really share that experience. It's a good feeling. I think I'm probably playing there about roughly once a month, but just to kind of use that as another, sort of in between launch pad training ground for myself to say, okay, it's putting me into a more intensive experience than an open mic. It's still giving me a sense of like practice right now. And since I still feel like a newbie and I'm getting my bearings in so many ways, then that kind of performance and practice has just been very valuable for me. And it's also really nice because it is so laid back, similar to an open mic where I know now, like, I can try out new songs there. I can mess up a chord or two or forget a lyric. And like, I don't feel like the roof is going to collapse around me. Like it, again, is always usually a very supportive group of people. And Four-Eyed Whale has done an incredible job of just building that kind of culture around it and attracting in those types of artists and the guest hosts he brings in. I've had a week where Willow Snags hosted. I had a week where I Love Stipe hosted. So I've been able to connect with a lot of other musicians and artists in the Sacramento community because of Local Sounds. So I'm very, very grateful for it.
And Local Sounds is where you debuted your new blue guitar.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question that I like to ask my songwriter guest when I bring them on. Do you name your instruments? And if so, what are their names?
So I named my very first guitar, which I got back when I was 19, so like 11-ish years ago. It was a Mitchell guitar, so I was super creative and I named it Mitchie. But come to think of it, I have not named. I have now two other new guitars. I have the blue acoustic that I did debut at Local Sounds. And then I have a blue electric, which I have had for about 5-6 months at this point. I just only recently started playing it live in the last like 2 to 3 weeks. And I've been really happy with just adding that into the mix. But again, gosh, now I'm going to have to, my mind's going to be running with name options because they are both unnamed. They're blank canvases.
So you have your own website.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide how to design your website?
Like I mentioned, my day job beyond music is in web design and copywriting. So the creative, like branding aspect is always something that I find very fun. It's just kind of a more of a pastime hobby for me in a way of just having my brain kind of work to, just build the story, I guess, let's say, or expand the story or the world that I'm like tapping into with my music and just feeling like it all gets to the energy or pulse of that gets to be expressed through a lot of different mediums. And one of which is like colors and fonts and just the visual design aspect. So with this current design for the website, which I have been, this is perfect that we're talking about this right now because I have been on the verge of like officially announcing it for like a week and I just have yet to do so because my perfectionistic mind is just always finding other things to tweak. But beyond that, the moody, melodramatic, like very leading with the heaviness and the darkness and the kind of bold colors and textures and just feeling like I know my music both in the lyrical like storytelling aspect and in also some of the sounds now that I'm exploring, especially in like the full-on production of my music. I really love duality where it feels bold and heavy and dark and intense, but it also is balanced with the softness and like the delicate pastel pinks and kind of faded misty blues and just things that evoke a lot of contrasting feelings. So again, any way that I could kind of convey that through the website or any of the graphics that I ever play around with and create for like the world of Kinsly and what that music really represents to me, at least in this season at this moment in time, because that's bound to change.
So there's a lot of things that you're getting ready to kind of launch, because I know that there was a section on your website that's called the journal that's currently unavailable.
Yes, so that's, let's say, one of the pieces that I have kind of been fleshing out over the last like month and a half. Essentially, I'm trying to create I guess, kind of a happy medium between blog Substack kind of piece mixed with a behind the scenes look and breakdown at the songs. I would love to be able to share, because again, this is something that Nine Fingers does a lot that really has inspired me, of just seeing the way that other artists in this community really love to just kind of break down like, oh, here's the meaning or like the thought or the story behind the song, but here's the chords and how to play along if you want to like make it your own, and breaking down certain lyrics. And just, I don't know, I find myself to be like a lot more, I guess, let's say, comfortable being very open or like prolific with everything that I want to share around the music, which I think kind of came as a bit of a surprise to me because I had been so private with it for so many years. I think I even just struggled with the idea initially, the first couple months, of writing more vulnerable songs and like being very open about certain topics. But once I kind of crossed that bridge and started to do so, it's like, then yeah, the floodgates were open, and now I'm just finding myself really wanting to create that openness. Just, it feels healing for me. It feels creatively satisfying and fulfilling. If other people find it interesting and helpful for their own process or whatnot, just voyeuristically, if they find it interesting, then that's cool. But I think my main goal and priority, just kind of that I keep coming back to with everything, is just focusing on what feels the most creatively fun and artistically expressive, and what feels healing for me, since there is a lot of like the mindset stuff that I needed to overcome to even get to this point, and anything that kind of just fuels that fire I want to run with. And so I think the journal is going to be, I have a couple of posts ready. I just want to have a certain, like maybe 4 or 5 before I open the doors officially to let people in. But yeah, so long-winded answer to that.
So September 28th, 2023 was the Songwriter Circle meetup. But 2 weeks before September 14th, 2023, you had created your YouTube channel. Is it safe to say that was the first step you made towards putting out your music?
Yes, that was definitely one of those moments of like feeling the spark start to take. It's kind of giving myself enough of the inner pep talk that says, yeah, like you clearly want to do something with this. You clearly want to share something. This feeling has been with me for over a decade now, and I've kept shoving it down. At this point, like, I have literally nothing to lose other than more years of my life, like missing this part of myself and wishing I could express it. So I started taking little steps, making the YouTube, starting the Instagram, and then I think I just kind of was posting like random art or journal entries and things that just, again, all kind of fed into my mindset. The storytelling aspect just gave me that platform or like channel for the creative expression that I just know my like heart and soul were craving so badly.
And at the time of me doing the research, there were only 2 songs available, My Sweet Friend and If Only I Knew. Are there plans to release more songs on the YouTube, or maybe incorporate some of the TikToks into the YouTube Shorts?
Yes, I definitely do have YouTube Shorts on a note on my little marketing plan to-do list, and that has not been incorporated yet, but needs to happen, as I'm sure all of us musicians can relate to. There's just an endless list of things to do nowadays. But yeah, I finally, let's say, started taking some of the longer clips from my Two Rivers shows and showcasing them on the YouTube channel compared to the shortened kind of reel snippets that I might post occasionally after a show. So typically, if my sister or my dad are there, they're usually my videographers at the moment. So I get my best quality stuff from like actual shows. If someone in my world is in the audience, you step into this world of saying, okay, I'm going to, go to open mics, or I'm going to consistently write music and I'm going to share it and I'm going to connect with people. And then the more that snowball grows, the more you realize, okay, that also comes with, learning to get into a habit of filming myself just in the process of writing the song, or like more behind the scenes content, or sharing like more content, not only out in the world, but in my room, like working on music, and familiarize myself with all the different social media platforms. Thankfully, again, through my background with my work, I had a pretty good feeling or like pulse on like Instagram and certain like things that I knew I wanted to kind of weave in, or certain like pacing with posting, that things that mental like notes I didn't have to force, I didn't have to learn. They were just kind of already in my brain. But there's a lot of things, let's say like with TikTok, that just feel like, okay, I engage passively as consumer here and there, but I'm not like as well versed in that language. And so now there's a lot of just learning every which way I go, which the part of me that's an eternal student really loves. It's just making sure I'm streamlining things where I'm also not learning too many things at once and it slips through the cracks.
Yeah, there's a lot of different social medias that we as artists have to kind of keep tabs on.
Exactly. We wear so many hats. And at the end of the day, the one that got us into this in the first place is the music. And I think there's that eternal part of all of us that is just stubbornly like the artist that says, I just don't want to talk to anyone. I want to be in my room, like writing music and just doing what I love. But then also knowing that all these other parts that may not seem related are very much related, because they still serve the music and, help people hear it or enjoy it, and like strengthen our ability to like spread the message of what we are creating. It's a lot to keep track of, that's for sure.
So you'd mentioned YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Another social media where you started posting was SoundCloud. It looks like the first song you posted was October 28th, 2023. It was a voice memo version of your song, Warmest Winter.
Yes. So that's where, so SoundCloud has been a bit of a long journey for me, because I would say that I think it was back in like 2015. I was, like that was my first time ever posting music. I did it all anonymously. I think at that point I had Logic Pro on my old computer, and I was messing around with more like EDM kind of tracks and just very amateur level like beat making. And so I shared some of those on there. And then I did like a couple like versions where I sang over and did like a remix on certain songs that I knew. But of course, I was way too shy and scared to like tell anyone in my world that those existed. And then a few years later, then I think I had a handful of just very rough, again, voice memo style recordings of some of my early songs that were like, I don't know, I think I've played a handful of these at like an open mic here or there, but there were ones called like Hesitation, Black Butterflies, On the Run. And again, that was kept like anonymous, but just released so I could every once in a while kind of get that hit of saying, I'm doing something with this. It's not completely like just a delusion in my mind that I write songs. But yeah, it wasn't until then last year, once I entered into this world, decided to take it seriously and just overcome that fear and the shame and embarrassment, anything I felt around it, and just leave that all at the door. Then I think at this point I've actually done about 2 or 3 different versions of the songs that are up there. It's just every so often I'll try to record a better take and then I'll replace the audio file on there. But again, right now, those are all just, genuinely rough voice memos to at least get something out there. So when I do connect with people and they say, oh, do you have anything out that I can listen to? Right now, that is all I have out that you can listen to. But I have been now working on my first song with a handful of people, one of which is Four-Eyed Whale. Three-Armed Bandit is another, Marisol from Willow Snags is another, and Chris from Winter Rain / Love and Despair is another. So I've got a whole group of people who are helping me now bring my first official release to life, and that will be finally ready later this summer. It's been a labor of love, but they've all been really helping to push me to, I think, get the best out of what I want to create here. And none of us are looking to rush it or like cut corners, which I've just been so grateful for. And at the same time, we're all very busy people with a lot of other musical projects, and I'm trying to make sure we all don't get stressed out or like burnt out throughout the process. And yeah, I'm very excited though. I'm very excited for that.
And for those of you listening, if you wanted to listen to the other songs, October 30th, you released the song Burn. November 1st, 2023, you released If I Only Knew. December 4th, you released a couple songs: Wanting to Love, On the Run, Let Me Be, and Ends With You. And the most recent one was March 25th, 2024, Forget Me Not. Do you think you'll continue posting voice memos of songs as you continue on, even recording more songs along the way?
I would say yes. I think the style, like, again, like the frequency of that may change. I'm not really worried, let's say, about like quote unquote where it goes, because at the end of the day, nothing changes from the fact that I'll always be writing songs, and I now always will have the courage to at least share them. I know the process of what it looks like to go about working with other people and recording and potentially releasing music. So I know like nothing changes on that front. So I would say even when I'm in that process where I'm releasing more polished material, I would still like to release voice memo versions, because I know even with a lot of my favorite artists that whenever you can find like the demo early rough stage versions and the very just kind of raw glimpses into their process or what a song looked like when it was just kind of, sloppy to an extent, but then it feels like so rich in emotion and it just feels like a beautiful part of the journey of that song. So yeah, I think that there will always be a place for that and something I would want to share.
Well, thank you for being our guest here on the What's in Your Case podcast. Do you have anything you'd like to promote or tell the listeners where they can find your content?
Absolutely, yes. So I will be playing my next show at Two Rivers for Local Sounds this coming Friday, the 14th. I'll be playing at 8 p.m., but the show starts at 6 and it goes to 9. There's always a handful of really incredibly talented people. Again, it's just a really laid back, cool environment, great cider. So if you are free on a Friday night, I always recommend stopping by to see what's up there, because they play every single Friday. But I will be there this Friday, the 14th. And then next month in July, on the 11th, I will be playing at Golden Bear. So yeah, those are my next two shows lined up, other than a handful of open mics every week, just to keep the wheels turning. And yeah, if you're not already connected with me on Instagram, you can find me at Kinsly Music. That's Kinsly. And as Don Rico mentioned, there's SoundCloud and my website. All of that is linked on the Instagram in the bios. So from there, you can pretty much find any little corner of my world that exists right now. And there will be more to come, but right now we start small and simple.